All right, so here is part 2 of 4B. So we're going to be adding and subtracting United States measurements. It says follow the process used in the examples below or add or subtract with the US measurements. Circle the givens and underline the goal to get started with each problem. All right, so Daryl recently flew from Phoenix, Arizona to Asheville, North Carolina. On his outbound flight, he flew first to Atlanta. It took him 3 hours and 35 minutes, and then he flew to Asheville for 45 minutes. What was his total flying time in hours and minutes? All right, so we know he had 3 hours, 35 minutes for his first flight, and then the second flight, he had 45 minutes. All right, so that means he flew 3 hours, but then 5 plus 5 is 10. He flew 80 minutes. Well, we don't walk around and tell people it took us 80 minutes to do much of anything. So we're going to subtract 60 minutes from 80, and that will give us an extra hour. So when we subtract 60 minutes, we get to add an hour. So that gives us a total of 4 hours and 20 minutes, right? So it took Daryl a total of 4 hours and 20 minutes to get from Phoenix to Asheville. All right, I'm going to erase that. All right, so for number 12, it says add 1 gallon 2 quarts and 3 gallons 6 quarts. Leave your final answer in gallons and quarts. All right, so we have 1 gallon, 2 quarts. Into that, we're going to add 3 gallons and 6 quarts, which gives us a total of 4 gallons and 8 quarts. Well, what do we know about quarts and gallons? Quarts, like a quarter. How many quarters make a dollar? So 4 quarts make a dollar. So I could subtract 4, and I would have 4 quarts left over. But I do know that since there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, in 8 quarts, that has to be 2 full gallons, right? If 1 quart makes up if 4 quarts make up 1 gallon, then 8 quarts makes up 2 gallons. So I'm going to subtract away all of these quarts because I know that there are 2 gallons for 4 quarts. So I'm going to get rid of my quarts. I'm going to add 2 gallons because these are equivalent. So all together, that's 6 gallons. But since it says the final answer in gallons and quarts, so technically that would be 6 gallons and 0 quarts. So that's the answer in gallons and quarts. All right, let me get this stuff away. All right, so now you guys try. Pause it and you guys try this problem and see what you do, and then come back. And actually the next slide is practice as well. So go ahead and try all of these problems all the way to letter E, and then come back and check your answers. All right, so Ryan needs a board that's exactly 8 inches long to add a little security to her window in her room. She has a board that's 1 feet 3 inches long to work with. How much inches or how many inches would she have to cut in order to use the board? So basically we're converting 1 foot 3 inches to inches only. Well, how many inches is this 1 foot? Well, that's 12 inches plus we had an extra 3 inches. So right now, Ryan has a total of 15 inches. She only needs, hey buddy, my dog's here. So 15 inches, but she only needs, or he only needs 8 inches. So if we subtract away 8 inches, that means that she has to cut 7 inches off of the board. So we had to convert everything to inches first, and then we had to subtract from that what she wanted, 8 inches. So that means she had to cut off 7 inches from each board. All right, so then the next few, it says complete the following, showing as much work as possible. Write 32 months in months and years. Well, what do we know about months and years? We know that there's 12 months in 1 year. So we had 32 months, then we want to know how many groups of 12 do we have in 32? Well, not quite 3, right? So 2, so we have 2 full years. Well, how much is 2 years? 2 years is 24 months. So we would have 8 months left over. So the answer is 2 years, 8 months. And that's the final answer, 2 years, 8 months. All right, letter B, 10 years and 6 months is how many months? All right, so we know that there are 12 months for 1 year. So we had 10 years. So 10 years, we're going to multiply 10 times 12. So that's 120 months plus these extra 6 months. So 10 years, 6 months is equal to 126 months. 120, that doesn't look like a 6, but it's supposed to be 126 months. If your final exam time is 110 minutes, write that time in hours and minutes. So what do we know about hours and minutes? We know that 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. We have 110 minutes. How many hours is that? Well, we want to know how many groups of 60 can we get out of 110? Well, really only 1, right? Only 1 hour. So if we pull out 60 minutes to make our 1 hour, that means we have 50 minutes left. So 110 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour and 50 minutes. 1 hour and 50 minutes. All right, I'm going to erase those. Pull up the next question. So letter D, Amy is 14,964 days old today. How old is this in years and days? Assume 365 days in a year with no leap years, just to keep it simple. How many days until Amy's birthday? So we have a couple of different problems, a couple of different questions to answer. So what do we know about days and years? We know that there's 365 days in a year. So we want to divide this number of days by groups of 365. So we're going to divide 14,964 by groups of 365. So if I multiply, if I use my my calculator and divide, well, my whole number I get is 40. So 40 years. But then that doesn't go evenly. We have extra, we have a remainder. So if we multiply 365 times 40, that is, what is that? 14,600. So how many days are left over? Well, if we had 14,964 and we subtracted out 40 years worth of days, that leaves us 364 days. Well, if a year is 365 days, she's 1 day short of being 41. So the second question is, how many days until Amy's birthday? Well, she only has to wait 1 more day and she'll be 41. So the first question is, how old is this in years a day? So the first answer is 40 years and 364 days. That's the first answer. The second answer is how many days until her birthday? 1. And letter E, Joseph spent 6.45 hours working on his English paper. How much time is this in hours and minutes? Well, 6 is already our whole number, right? So we already know that we have 6 hours. But then it says 0.45. Well, since time is not based on 100, that does not mean 45 minutes, because 0.45 is equal to 45 100ths. Well, we don't have 100 minutes in an hour. So basically, this is a decimal, so 0.45. So basically, we want to know what is 45% of a full hour. Well, how many minutes is an hour? 60. We want to know what is 45% of 60. Well, 45% of 60, we're going to multiply 60 times 0.45. And we're going to use our little handy dandy calculator. And the answer is 27. So if he spent 6.45 hours, that means he spent 6 hours and 27 minutes. A lot of people make that mistake. They convert this to minutes, and that is not right because our time is not based on units of 10 or 100 or 1,000. All right, moving on. So let's look at number 4. It says complete each of the following showing as much work as possible. So we want to add 2 pounds 10 ounces plus 4 pounds 8 ounces. Leave your answer in pounds and ounces. So we're going to add 2 pounds 10 ounces plus 4 pounds 8 ounces. And we add that together and we get 6 pounds 18 ounces. Well, how many ounces are in a pound? There are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So then I'm going to bring 6 pounds 18 ounces up here. So I know that there's 16 ounces, so I'm going to subtract 16 ounces, and since I subtract 16 ounces, I get to add a pound because those are equivalent. So 6 pounds plus 1 pound is 7 pounds, and 18 minus my 16, my pound I took out, it leaves 2 ounces. So 7 pounds, 2 ounces is my final answer. All right, the next question is, suppose you took 2 final exams on a given day. Each final exam allows 110 minutes. You took 1 hour and 5 minutes on the first exam and 50 minutes on the second. How long were you taking exams on the day? The second question is, how much extra time did you not use on that day? All right, so let's look at the first question first. 1 hour and 5 minutes plus the second part of the exam, you took 50 minutes, which means altogether you spent 1 hour and 55 minutes. Now, can we leave it in that form? Yeah, because 55 minutes is less than an hour. So that answers the first question. However, the second question asks how much extra time did we have, or how much time did we not use? Well, we had 110 minutes for each section. So 110 minutes would be, let's go ahead and convert 110 minutes to hours. Well, isn't 1 hour 60 minutes? So if I subtract 60 minutes from that, I had 50 minutes left over, right? So, whoops. So 110 minutes is the same as I had 1 hour and 50 minutes to take a test, and I took 1 hour and 5 minutes. Well, I can subtract that the way it's written because 1 hour and 1 hour cancel, and I could subtract 50 from 5 or 5 from 50, and I get 45 minutes. So I had 45 extra minutes on my first test. I had 45 extra minutes. And then my second test, I only took 50 minutes, right? Well, I was allowed 110 minutes. So instead of converting this to hours and minutes, I'll just leave it as 110. I had 110 minutes, and I used 50 minutes. So that means I had left over 60 minutes. Well, what does that mean? What is 60 minutes equal to? 60 minutes is equal to an hour. So basically, what I had left over was I had 1 full hour. This is my 1 full hour, 1 hour and 45 minutes of extra time. I could have used an hour and 45 minutes more time than I actually used to take my tests. Okay, so this is the first answer. This is the second answer. All right, the next question, let me get rid of all this stuff. How much greater is 3 gallons than 2 gallons, 1 quart? So let's go ahead, since it has quarts here, let's convert everything to quarts. So we already said, just like 4 quarters in a dollar, there's 4 quarts for 1 gallon, 4 quarts for every gallon. So 3 gallons would be 12 quarts. So this is equal to, 3 gallons is equal to 12 quarts. So 2 gallons, so if there's 4 quarts in a gallon, so 2 gallons is going to be 8 quarts plus the 1 extra is 9 quarts. So that's what this part is. So the question is, which one is greater, 12 quarts or 9 quarts? Well, oh, how much greater? I'm so sorry. Of course, 3 gallons is more than 2 gallons. How much means we're subtracting. So we have 12 quarts minus 9 quarts. So how much greater is 3 gallons than 2 quarts? 2 gallons, 1 quart. The answer is 3 quarts. That's how much greater. Okay. All right, letter D. Maria's pool holds this much water when filled to the recommended height. She needs to add 57.63 more gallons to reach this height. How many gallons of water are already in the pool? So if this is the total and she needs this much more, then how much does she have in there right now? Well, we're just going to subtract those two numbers. Remember, when you subtract decimals, you line up those decimals right on top of each other. So 7 minus 3 is 4. Turn that into a 12, that into an 11, that into a 5. All right, so 11 minus 6 is 5. And then 11 minus 7 is 4. 5 minus 5 is 0. So currently, her pool has 2,904 oops, that's a 6. That's 12 minus 6. 0.64 gallons. So currently it has that much gallons, 2,904.64 gallons. And then the question is, how many quarts of water need to be added? So basically, we're adding this many more gallons, and the question is, how many quarts? Well, how many quarts are in a gallon? The answer is 4. So if we need 57.63 gallons, how many quarts? Well, we got to multiply by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. 24 plus 1 is 25. 28, 29, 30. 23, and 2 numbers behind the decimal. So the number of quarts that's needed is 230.52 quarts. That is the second answer. All right, let me get rid of this. And letter E, Graham ate 9 ounces of protein, 16 ounces of vegetables, and 5 ounces of dairy. How many ounces did he eat in total? So 9 plus 6 plus 5. Oops. So he ate a total of 20 ounces. And then the question is, what is that equivalent weight in pounds? Well, how many pounds are in, how many ounces are in 1 pound? Well, the answer is 16. It didn't tell us what it needs to be rounded to, does it? So we know if we have 16 for 1 pound, then if I subtract 16 from that, that's 1 pound. And then how many ounces are left? 4 ounces. Or if I divide 20 by 16, that's the same as saying 1.25 pounds. Oh, actually, it only wants pounds, so this answer is not good enough because it says pounds and ounces. So pounds, just in pounds, would be 1.25. 1.25 pounds. All right, I'm going to take another quick break. My daughter brought me some dinner, so I'm going to go eat, and then I'll be back.